So in this video today, we will be discussing what are Fernando Alonso's options for 2018. I've narrowed them down to 4 options. The first option would be to stay at McLaren. The second option would be to try Indy Car racing. The third option would be to seek another Formula 1 team. The fourth option would be to take a sabbatical, 1 or 2 years away from motorsport, especially away from Formula 1. Now let's look at the first option, which is staying at McLaren. McLaren have split with Honda, and for next season they'll be using Renault units. McLaren has been very critical of the Honda engines all year, and it was pretty clear that if Honda will be supplying engines to McLaren next year, Fernando Alonso will not be driving for them. So let's say that Fernando does decide to stay 1 more year at McLaren. Let's say he renews his contract for another 1 year. Once again, be using a new engine again. Now, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that an engine unit fits the car. It has to fit with the aerodynamic package of the car and the engineering mechanics of the car. You don't simply just dump an engine in and all of a sudden it's going to be a championship contending car. There'll be a lot of work and a lot of upgrades throughout next season. So it's highly unlikely that they're going to be challenging for podiums, and definitely not the Drivers' or Constructors' Championship next year. They may, towards the end of the season, if they have good upgrades and the Renault engine works well with the McLaren, possibly be battling for podiums. They may possibly be battling for podiums. However, Renault, Red Bull and Ferrari have really shown their true potential this year and taken off. It's highly unlikely that they're not going to be competitive next year. McLaren have got a lot of work to do next year. It certainly won't be easy. Now, we also need to look at this as a bandage solution. They had a very sour and toxic relationship with Honda, and they had to split with them for next season. There was no debate, it had to happen. So this is a bandage solution going with Renault engines. It was the only engine supplier that would supply them with an engine. This isn't a strategic partnership. This is a band-aid situation. It is just filling a current problem. It is not fixing the problem in the long term. Now, McLaren haven't stated on paper that this is going to be some long-term partnership whereby they're going to win championships together, blah, blah, blah. It is obviously just they are customers. That's it. They're just a customer like Red Bull. So there's nothing strategic from this decision. So McLaren also need to get their stuff together and make sure they've got a confirmed driver lineup for next season. They need to follow in line with what Toro Rosso have done this month, which is kick out Danny Kvyat and replace it with Gasly. They need to make sure that their driver lineup is done and dusted before this engine change happens, so they're not messing around with driver lineup last minute. So I think that McLaren will start pushing Alonso to make his decision soon, and I think that they will want him to commit them more than 1 year. Now, the other thing we need to look at, albeit it's just speculation at the moment, that McLaren have long-term plans to create their own engine units, and they are merely just waiting until the engine changes in 2021, where we'll most likely be using twin-turbo V6 hybrid engines. So that at the moment, they are just waiting it out. Now, I think this Renault engine thing will be until 2021, which basically means that the team is saying that we're just going to use the engines until we can make our own. I don't think that they're going to be under the impression that they're suddenly going to become a championship contending team. This is, again, as I keep saying, just a band-aid solution. So that is something else to consider. Now, Alonso has come out of recent and said that he still needs convincing because of McLaren's potential. He is not 100% convinced, but he has said that McLaren will learn the truth, basically implying that next year they have a benchmark, which is Red Bull and Renault. So he is kind of looking forward to the challenge of just seeing how competitive the actual car is, because now they have something to benchmark against. But obviously the fact that he's saying he needs convincing is not a good sign. So I personally believe staying at McLaren another year would just be a complete waste of time. He doesn't need to get more experience under his belt. He's an experienced, talented and skilled driver already. So he doesn't need to just stay on the grid to remain relevant. He's also said that it will probably be the next break that he will confirm and make his decision, and that will be after the Japanese Grand Prix. So it doesn't look like he will stay at McLaren, and I don't think they will convince him to stay, and I think that the team will be short of patience soon, and they're just going to say, you have to make your decision because we need to find a new driver if you're not going to stay. And that's not how you work with Alonso. Alonso's quite stubborn. He wants it his way, and he expects to be number one and priority. So I think that it will not happen next year for sure. However, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty positive he's going to look elsewhere. And I don't think he wants to spend another year pedaling around at the back of the grid if this engine change is not going to be a success. So let's look at the second option. Now, the second option would be to race in Indy Car Series next season. He recently has done the Indianapolis 500, and he had a lot of success whilst he was doing that. He qualified 5th, and he led for about 27 laps, which is very impressive considering this is his first ever time in an Indy car. However, engine problems affected his position again, and unfortunately the engine blew up on lap 179, which meant he finished only in 27th out of 33 cars, which was a bitter shame considering he was doing so well at the time. So let's have a look at the reasons why he may want to make this decision to move to Indy, and if it's the right choice for him. Now, firstly, it will be a new challenge for Alonso. It will be a positive experience and a change of environment. Given that he's been in a pretty negative mindset since 2015 with the disastrous spell with Honda engines at McLaren, and prior to that he had a pretty difficult time at Ferrari from 2010 to 2014, whereby he kept finishing second, which is second from last every single season. So I think a new environment, a new challenge, a new experience will be very good for Alonso. In addition, a lot of Formula One drivers have moved to IndyCar and had a lot of success and enjoyed it. For example, Sebastian Bourdais has had a lot of success in IndyCar. Pablo Montoya, Esteban Gutierrez, Scott Speed, Alexander Rossi, Max Chilton and Takuma Sato. So a lot of drivers of recent years have moved there, enjoyed it, and actually had a lot of success. Now, another reason is Indy cars are incredibly fast, faster than Formula One cars. They have 2.2 litre twin-turbo V6S engines, and which have a speed anywhere between 550 to 750 horsepower max, which is very fast and great fun to drive. In addition to this, there is a very level mechanical playing field, with only two engine suppliers, Honda and Chevrolet, providing engines for all the teams. Every engine is the same. No team gets a better or worse engine. In addition, all teams have the same official spec car of the Dallara DW12 chassis spec. So no team has a mechanical advantage, and any differences between the car are mainly cosmetic differences, which means it's a very balanced playing field, and talent and potential is what wins races rather than technical development like in Formula One. Now, considering the fact that a lot of Alonso's problems since his 2006 World Championship has been down to the fact that the cars haven't been as competitive as other cars, this could be a nice change of pace for Alonso, something different and less frustrating. Now, the final thing to look at is at least two Indy teams are interested in him. The first being Chip Ganassi Racing, and the second being Andretti Autosport. And both team principals have come out and said that having Alonso in IndyCar would be fantastic for the sport, and it would be fantastic for their teams. And they are very interested in the concept of signing him for next year if they can get the sponsorship package together to obviously pay his salary. So there is demand for him to drive for the team, and there are opportunities for him to move there. And also there has been a lot of Formula One drivers in the past that have had success in Indy. So it is an option. It is a good opportunity, and I believe that it would be great for him in terms of his mindset, in terms of a new challenge, a new direction, and something different for a change. In addition, America seems to like Fernando Alonso. Now let's look at the third option, which is moving to another Formula One team. Now it looks like there's only one other seat available for next season, which is the Williams team. But is this realistic for Fernando, and is this realistic for Williams? Now let's take into consideration that Fernando Alonso, whilst racing for Ferrari, was earning about $30 million per year. And recently, at McLaren, he's been earning $40 million a year, including bonuses. Now let's have a look at Williams' second driver, which is Felipe Massa. He's currently earning $3.5 million per year, and previous years he's been earning about $4.5 million per year. So he is the highest paid driver at Williams, considering Lance Stroll is paying his own salary. So let's say both parties are interested in this move. Alonso currently earns $40 million per year. Now, Williams could never afford that. It's not viable. They may be able to raise about $8 to $10 million per year for his salary by maybe asking Lawrence Stroll to chip in more money to the team and asking Martini to raise a little bit more money in order to cover his salary. So that means Alonso will take anywhere between a $32 to $30 million pay cut for a team that currently stands 5th in the Constructors' Championship, and their best driver championship position is 11th right now, and they've only got one podium finish to their name. So this team is only a little bit better than his current team, McLaren. So is it really worth taking such a massive pay cut and maybe being about the 6th highest paid driver on the grid, going down from 2nd highest paid driver on the grid behind Sebastian Vettel? I don't think so. So this really isn't a viable option, and I don't think either parties would be interested in this. So this leaves it to our fourth and final decision, which is taking 1 to 2 years away from motorsport and Formula One altogether. So Alonso doesn't need to stay on the grid just to remain visible and relevant. He can walk away from Formula One and return in 2 years and get a drive, just because he is such a great talent and he is so recognised in the sport and such an icon. It doesn't matter if he's not racing on the grid next year or even the year after. He will still be approachable. Now, Alonso has been racing in Formula One for a long time now. He started his career in 2001 with Minardi. He then moved to Renault, and then after that McLaren, and then after that Ferrari, and then recently back to McLaren. So he's been around for a long time. He's raced against some of the best. He's raced for some of the best teams in the world. He's worked with some of the best mechanics, engineers, and he's raced all the circuits, God knows how many times. So he must be a little bit bored. So possibly maybe 1-2 years away from the sport will be good for him. A change of environment, maybe do some new sports, some new activities, something different. Now, considering he's got a net worth of about $80 million, he certainly wouldn't be on a shoestring budget or trying to make ends meet. He's got more than enough money just to relax and enjoy his wealth and enjoy his fame and his fortune. So there's no need for him to be in Formula One in order to pay the bills. Now, as I said before, he wants to be victorious, he wants to be winning, he wants to be the best. He said that recently in interviews, and unfortunately I don't think any other option in Formula One will give him that right now. Now, what he can do is wait out Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton will win his 4th championship this year, and he may do another 1 year in Formula One, possibly another year after that. He's always implying and indicating that he wants to do other things. I've heard recently he wants to be a fashion superstar model. Before that, it was a track designer. Before that, it was MotoGP. Before that, he wanted to do humanitarian work. So he's always wanting to do something different. He seems a little bit bored of Formula One, albeit that he's having a lot of success. So Alonso could just wait him out. Wait until his contract expires. Wait until it gets to the point that he just wants a change. So when that happens, he can swoop in and then become Mercedes driver, which was what he obviously would love to have. So share your thoughts in the comments below and make sure you subscribe in order to keep up with all the latest news.